Y'all, I think we lost like 3 people this episode, and I don't think any of us saw it coming. Despite the delay, Invincible did not disappoint. Once it returned, we have quite a few things to talk about. We're going to talk about Debbie and what might be her new reality. We're going to talk about Amber, Rex, and Adam Eve, as well as Alan. With that being said, welcome if it's your first time here, and if you've been here for a while, been supporting me for a while, thank you, I appreciate it. It definitely goes a long way. Now, I will say, this episode started off rough and got even more rough by the time it ended. Anyway, after 2 months, Mark is finally preparing to go home, and Dressa, I think that's how you say her name, she brings something up to Mark. She's like, hey, the Thraxons have a very short lifespan, and with Nolan gone, that's a very big problem. Before, it wasn't an issue if Nolan was still around because your younger brother would still have someone, but that's no longer the case. So she basically urges Mark to take his younger brother back home with him, and at first he isn't really too sure about that, especially given the situation and especially given how his mom might react. But at the end of it all, I think he understood that it was definitely the right thing to do. Now at this point, I was kind of worried about 2 things. One, how would Debbie react to this, as she's already gone through a lot, she's been through a lot, and I wasn't necessarily sure if she got over what happened with Omni-Man just yet. Not only would seeing and raising Omni-Man's child be a hard pill to swallow, but it would also be a constant reminder of the things that she's probably trying to forget. The second thing I was kind of worried about, which may be slightly irrational, but I was kind of worried if Amber was still holding it down while Mark was away. I could be wrong, but I definitely feel like Amber is a lot more tolerable this season, at least to me, and I didn't want Mark being away to open up any doors for her to regress. I'm extremely glad to see that I was worried for nothing with both cases, as Debbie was able to come to terms with Mark's younger brother, and Amber is still playing the role of a great girlfriend. Well, not gonna lie though, I do still ship Mark with Adam Eve.
One more?
Eve!
Hi.
Amber and Mark seem like they're doing pretty fine, but it's just something about what Adam, Eve, and Mark have that I don't want to let go, and it's something I want to see blossom into something more. I feel like they have a lot more to their relationship than what Amber and Mark could ever have. And speaking of Adam, Eve, I gotta give props to Rex this episode, because while I really feel indifferent towards Rex, I really like how he was able to encourage her and pull her out of her slump, because I do think she really needed that. Samantha was really beating herself up, and you could tell that a lot of things were just weighing on her conscience, and I feel like that could have led her on a very dark path. So I'm glad someone was able to intervene. Sometimes we need other people to step in and save us from ourselves, because we can be too critical of ourselves or whatever the case may be. Rex really came through for what might have been the last time. And I say that because Rex found himself in a really horrific and gruesome situation. Like, it was pretty brutal. And borderline disturbing.
Yeah.
On one hand, we had the Immortal and the others trying to solve a massive threat in space, while we had Rex and the others trying and failing to hold the fort down on Earth. It was definitely a lot going on this episode, and I know for sure Kate and the other girl, they definitely did not make it. Not quite sure if Rex will make it or not, but if he doesn't, that'll be yet another casualty, and I'm curious how Cecil is going to handle the situation, or if he'll be able to intervene somehow and help Rex out. I mean, he's always clearly watching people to begin with.
You already know, don't you?
Anyway, on the bright side at least, Donald finally gets some of the answers he's been looking for, and while Cecil seems a little bit indifferent, it's clear that Donald is very emotional about this and he's processing a lot of things, which is definitely understandable. Then we have Alan, who I was really hoping would pull through, and he did. According to Thetis, who I suspected was a Viltrumite and ended up being right about it, Alan is bigger, better, and stronger than before, and can now put up more of a fight against a Viltrumite. And naturally, after what Alan went through with those 3 Viltrumites, I don't blame him for being hesitant to run it back again. With Alan healed, new and improved basically, it looks like Thetis is probably going to train him and take Alan under his wing and show him a thing or two and help him be prepared for his next confrontation with the Viltrumites. And Thetis also wants Alan to bring Mark to him. Now at this point, I'm kind of like, dang, Mark is really being passed around more than the groupie right now because he's basically needed everywhere, and it feels like everyone's trying to get to Mark for some reason or the other. So I'm definitely curious to see how that's going to play out. I mean, he can't be in multiple places at once. I mean, he can try, but I feel like eventually they'll get pretty exhausting and tiring, but we'll see. This was a great episode. I enjoyed every bit of it. I don't really have any complaints. I look forward to seeing how Mark and the others are going to get out of the situation in space and how that's going to be resolved. Then I'm also looking forward to the Immortal's reaction about when he finds out what happened to Kate. I'm not sure how he's going to react, but I do know they were romantically involved. So that's going to be something to look forward to. And maybe, just maybe, we'll get to see what's going on with Nolan just a little bit. Anyway, y'all, that's all I have for this episode for the time being. Y'all be sure to let me know what y'all think down below. And as always, thank y'all for tuning in. SierraNovaa is out.